Good afternoon. A pleasure to welcome all of you to the February 8th, 2024 briefing. And this is actually the second briefing for the meeting that is actually the actual meeting next Thursday, February 15th, for the February 15th, 2024 meeting. We do not have discussion items today, so as we review the agenda items, I will turn the meeting over to our county manager.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, board members and staff and guests. We have a fairly straightforward agenda today, knock on wood. So we'll go ahead and dive into it and get through it. And as you mentioned, we do not have any closed session items or any other discussion items. So we'll kick it off. These are the items to be voted on next Thursday at the February 15th meeting. The first item is a public hearing on a petition to close Vaughn Road, and Matthew Hamby is here, and he will come up and review this petition, this public hearing.
Afternoon.
Afternoon.
This will be pretty brief. We don't have a tremendous amount of information on Vaughn Road history-wise. Zara Cohen was the petitioner.
Is your mic on?
I'm sorry.
I think it's at the bottom.
Yes, it is.
Huh.
Zara Cohen was the petitioner. All of Vaughn Road is located in Forsyth County in the Blues Creek Township. The Planning and Development Services staff concluded there's no negative impact from closing Vaughn Road. And as we are all aware, the public hearing date is next week. Here you can see where Vaughn Road is located, near the intersection of Windsfoot Drive and Craig Road. And Mrs. Cohen's parcel is just to the north there. And here you can see the yellow denotes that it is where the Forsyth County boundary ends. And we have the petition from the NCDOT requesting the closure of Vaughn Road. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Matthew?
Where's the park?
Happy birthday.
Oh, really? No kidding. Where's the park? The new county park is actually off Craig Road. Do you know kind of where that is in relation to this particular?
Not sure in relation to that. It's all owned by Duke Energy. All the parcels around it are owned by Duke Energy, so I imagine it's pretty close.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you. All right, so not any other questions. So next item are minutes. Those I know are being worked on, and
I'm going to get them out tomorrow.
Okay, so be looking in your email for that. We have one budget and finance item. It is a resolution authorizing the appropriation of interest earnings in the Pandemic Special Revenue Fund and transfer to the general fund, and then amendment to the Pandemic Special Revenue Fund to the appropriate interest earnings and transfer to the general fund. So what we're going to do with this is I think Lee and Kyle, I don't see Lee, Plunkett's back there. They're going to actually talk about the item itself, but what we thought we would do is actually give you a kind of an update on the American Rescue Plan Act and the progress with the projects that you approved. And so Kimberly and Aisha, who's taking the lead on this? Both of you. Okay, yeah, they're basically going to step through what was already approved in the funding plan that we have. There are going to be some future agenda items, namely the biggest future agenda item that we have there is we knew there's the issue of extensions with some of those projects, and so they're going to talk a little bit about that, but hopefully that'll give you a good idea kind of where we are, and then we can talk about this particular appropriation of interest earnings. So Aisha.
Perfect. All right, good afternoon, County Commissioners. Aisha Carter, Kimberly Shore there, to do an ARPA update for you. I have provided you all with a list of ARPA projects showing expenditures. There are two documents, one alphabetically and one by total percent dispersed, as well as a list of projects requesting changes that I plan to discuss during this presentation. And you also have a copy of the PowerPoint. In regards to funds dispersed, as of January 31st, 2024, 62% of funds have been dispersed, with a total remaining of 28 million.
They may not see it on Teams.
So as previously stated, dispersed amount is 62%. Of the 74 million, 28 remain, and 46 have been dispersed, 46 million.
Apologize, we got to get the technology right here. There we go, we're back.
I think we fixed our issue. All right, so this slide, I'll make it bigger.
Want to help her, Shonda?
Leave it that way. So this slide shows 62% of funds dispersed and the remaining 28 million. The next slide shows projects by progress. We have 10 projects that are completed, 7 between 75 to 99% complete, 10 between 50 to 74 complete, 25 between 1 to 49% complete, and 13 projects have yet to start. Of the 13 projects, some of whom have started and will be entering expenses in Neighborly this month. And then there's 4 external projects that haven't started, and that's Trellis, NC Rush, YWCA, and YMCA. Trellis, I did receive an email from them, January 2024. They have had DHHS approve them to proceed with the capital improvements for HVAC and electrical generator. NC Rush, their project is a futsal court at Old Town Elementary School. They can't start until the weather permits. YWCA, per email, they do have intentions on completing that project by December 2024. And they were awarded funds to repair 2 buses and purchase a minivan. And then the YMCA, they, based off my last email with them, said they will begin construction by the end of 2023. Here's a list of all the ARPA completed projects. The first 6 I had previously discussed in a prior discussion, as a prior discussion item, and I'm only going to focus on the last 6 shown on the PowerPoint. So the Shepherd Center was awarded $300,000 and was able to serve 3,300 individuals 60 years and older, and provide medical and nutritional transportation. They provided 23,000 one-way trip requests for medical and nutritional assistance, and they had an average of 40 unduplicated volunteers served with their transportation program. Based off their grant, they wanted to do transportation in Forsyth County to and from areas in Forsyth County at an 85%, greater than 85% rate. Based off the zip codes that they provided, 100% of the transportation provided was in Forsyth County to and from. Next I have here is Caladium. They were awarded $100,000 for their PRISM program and accomplished the following: 124 PRISM or STEM guest engagement activities, 21 hosted PRIM or STEM-related special events, 72 PRISM STEM field trips delivered at 17 Forsyth County schools, and of the 72, 41 were Title I schools. In addition, they had 83 Prism or STEM camps focused on STEM learning and had 6 robotic teams located in Forsyth County. Next, I have TROSA, who received $60,701 to offset a portion of costs associated with providing resident meals. They were able to serve 18,000 well-balanced meals to substance abuse residents, and they served 40 unduplicated individuals in their Forsyth County TROSA Triad location. And I have some stats here of the individuals served. Next, I have Forsyth County Fire Apparatus. Forsyth County purchased 4 fire trucks for $2.8 million. As of the end of January, all trucks undergone pre-construction, and trucks are to be manufactured and delivered 15 to 30 months after they were ordered. So we're still awaiting the trucks, but the funds have been dispersed. The next slide talks about a recent U.S. Treasury update. So recently, the U.S. Treasury has clarified its rules allowing the option of extending subrecipients spending past the 2024 deadline. Please note that the extension of time does not include additional funding. County staff has reached out to subrecipients and requested memos detailing why their program will benefit from extended time. Subrecipients were asked to provide a detailed explanation why an extension is needed, and reason or reasons should agree with at least one of the following: unforeseen challenges, complex projects, personnel changes, external factors, data collection changes, and/or evaluation and learning. Here you see a list of all those who requested an extension and the extension dates needed. We have ARCA. Now, I won't go into too much detail since I'll be back during the second briefing to discuss. And I do plan on inviting all the organizations that is requested an extension to that meeting. But ARCA requested an extension for unforeseen challenges and external factors. They were awarded $151,000 to provide residential treatment for individuals on medication-assisted treatment for opioid use disorder. Work Family Resource Center, they asked for an extension through December 31st, 2025 for external factors, and they were awarded $221,000 to increase the availability of local child care by supporting the recruitment and startup of 20 new licensed family child care homes in Forsyth County. Smart Start of Forsyth County, they asked for extension through December 31st, 2025 for unforeseen challenges and evaluation and learning. That is for their pre-K priority program coalition. Next, I have Children's Home Society of North Carolina. They were awarded $568,000 to fund a Child First program in Forsyth County, and they asked for extension through June 30th, 2025. Forsyth Tech asked for extension through May 31st, 2025, and it was for unforeseen challenges and personnel changes. And that program was to purchase nursing education simulation software. Next, I have the Centers for Exceptional Children. They asked for an extension through December 31st, 2025 for several different reasons: unforeseen challenges, personnel changes, data collection changes, and evaluation and learning. They were awarded funds for their infant and toddler program. The IDA Small Business Program asked for an extension through December 31st, 2026 for unforeseen challenges, and they were awarded funding for their small business program. It's a savings match program for small businesses focused on entrepreneurship and financial literacy. Next, I have the Arts Council of Winston-Salem. They requested extension through September 30th, 2025, and their reason was complex project and personnel changes. Then I have here Cure Violence. I do believe an extension will be needed for them. We have a meeting scheduled for Monday until we collect a little bit more details. I just wanted you guys to be aware that they may need an extension.
Well, could you, after you have that meeting, could you update us on that?
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Next, I have Greater Winston-Salem. They were awarded fund $2.5 million to create a sustainable and co-located workforce training system that synchronizes education and training from partner entities. Now, these are not extensions, but these are other ARPA requested changes. So for this one, they were approved for $2.5 million, but their agreement that they presented to the board originally was only for 1.7. This is to actually approve a resolution to execute an agreement for the remaining amount of money. So an agreement for $800,000. But they already have been approved for 2.5. And the last thing here is the Rural Hall Highway 65 Waterline Extension Project. The board approved Forsyth County's request for ARPA funds for the Waterline project. We want to make the Utilities Commission the subrecipient versus county being a recipient. And that is so that they can actually have a contract that extends throughout 2024. Said all that to say that on March 7th, I will be bringing extensions for you guys to approve or review, as well as amendments needed to the Highway Waterline project, and then one agreement to approve the Greater Winston-Salem resolution for their second contract with Forsyth County. Any questions, comments, concerns?
I've got two
All
short
right.
ones, and there may be others. The first one is there a date certain that from the Treasury Advisory, the Department of Treasury, that all the money has to be spent?
Great question. From what I believe it's still December 2026. Gordon, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's correct. The change was in when subrecipients can spend the money, and so there's more flexibility for subrecipients. And so we're now more confident that we can extend projects into 2025 and in some cases 26 without there being a substantial risk to the county if the county itself is not the one directly expending the money.
And the second question would be, of those that have requested these, extensions, what if one of them encounters more unforeseen circumstances and they want to go into 2026, for example?
The resolution as written would be this extension date. I would have to come back to the board to give them another extension. Again,
Well, I
Gordon,
was getting
correct
to-
me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, but they could request it, is what I'm getting at. As long as
Yes.
before everything
December
has to be spent.
2026.
Any other questions?
Do you anticipate that the water project may go into 26?
I think that's the deadly question.
I really think it might be a Shore. So Kimberly Shore is actually handling compliance. She's actually handling the compliance with the day-to-day stuff, and she's done a great job as boots on the ground to work with each of the recipients as well as Aisha. But
So from right now, they have not started that project. It will not start until about April. So I'm expecting once it starts to see if it will go fast forward. But due to the fact of there could be labor, construction, I'm not sure what's going to entail. That could be a delay. So don't have really an answer to see if it will overextend to 2026, but it will have to go home fast forward because it hasn't even started.
That is so disappointing.
so, the other piece of that is when bids are received, we'll know how much of this $500,000 needs to be used. And so, once they get bids in, we'll understand that better. So, and it maybe they don't need these dollars.
At what point do we lose the ability to utilize the fallback of assigning unspent funds to lost revenues for the county?
2026, I do believe that.
That authority extends all the way through the.
Yes.
Yeah, and that question relates a little bit to the action that we're going to take today as well. And so, what is helpful with the extension is they got more time to spend it. And so the idea that it will, that money will be put to use is I think, more likely. And so I don't think we're going to have the reversions that we thought. And so the board may, well, it'll relate to this next item a little bit because we're actually going to claim some of that in it. So,
in theory, are we now past the point that we could, based on evidence, of your evaluation, decide that a project is really not as viable within the time frame as had been originally anticipated? At what point would we lose, or have we already lost the ability to reassign that to another grantee agency?
so I think what we would do is we would use our ability to claim the revenue loss and then be able to deal with that as a separate decision outside of ARPA.
I thought that might.
So we do have flexibility, more flexibility during this year, 2024. And so if, for example, we wanted to terminate an agreement and do something entirely different with that, we could do that during this year. Once we get into 25, there is more flexibility, but it needs to really be the same kind of thing. And so there's not a ton of flexibility for the county after 2024, but there is flexibility for subrecipients to continue to spend money in 25 and 26.
But the county could decide, all right, this project, realistically speaking, is not happening before the end of 2026, and therefore we're reassigning these funds to lost revenue, or do we lose or substantially reduce that flexibility at some point?
It becomes much more difficult to do that after this year.
Yeah, as I hear you, the reassignment of the dollars to a different project, for example, if it were made in 2024, then that could be spent up until the 20. It's just you can't make any more adjustments after 2024. It's an extension to allow those that are in effect in 2024 to finish.
I guess I'm trying at this point at first I understood the answer to be through 2026 if we determine that a project is not going to finish on time and there are remaining revenues, that up until the end of 2026 we could elect to simply reassign that to lost revenues. The refined answer makes me unsure that I understood that correctly.
So I think Gordon, you jump in, Kimberly, you jump in as well. So I think what needs to happen is we'll get a good idea of where we are spend in fall of 24. And at that point, you'll want to go ahead and claim some of the money that's there for lost revenue. You're going to want to leave some capacity of lost revenue available through December of 26 for those projects that for some reason don't spend all the money. And so it's really just a financial analysis of what's our exposure, what does our exposure look like in 2024, and then do we set aside enough so that we know we're okay for whatever happens in fall of 2026.
But in theory, again, we could make that switch until the end of December 2026.
I don't believe that's true. I believe 24 is the deadline for the lost revenue part of it.
Okay.
That's what that's specifically what I was asking.
So if a project that we extend, that's good, I'm glad, because I certainly thought it was different. So if a project that gets an extension to 2026 does not spend all their money, that's just dollars we got to send back to the federal government?
I believe that's correct. We could try, this would not be easy, but we could try to get another provider to step into that provider's shoes and provide that service. But
If that's the case, then the strategy is going to look different. We have revenue laws that in fall of 2024, then I think you're going to want to claim it all in lost revenue, set it aside, and push it out there and be funding it with lost revenue dollars and not true ARPA dollars. I'm glad you said that, Gordon.
Well, that would be the smart thing to do regardless, because once you do that, you're removing yourselves from the ARPA restrictions.
Great. That sounds like the ticket.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, because I was thinking wrong about that then. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, so Kyle, are you coming up? Lee? Kyle's going to handle it. All right. So I'll turn it over to Kyle for this is the action that that you'll be in front of you next Thursday.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So yeah, the agenda item is essentially appropriating $2 million of interest earnings that have accumulated in the pandemic response special revenue fund. Those interest earnings are available to be used for any governmental purpose without restriction. And so what this strategy would do is it would basically claim that $2 million of interest earnings, and we're requesting $395,000 of it kind of be earmarked to offset costs of a grants compliance program manager through FY27. And then the remaining $1.6 million be set aside to offset the loss of revenue replacement funding. As you know, the past 3 years, we've appropriated $6,064,715 in the revenue replacement. And that is, we don't have those funds available next year, because originally when we came up with that calculation, it was 18 million. So anyhow, that's what this agenda item would do. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Kyle?
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. A lot of work. That sounded easy. There's a lot of work that went in the background on that, so I appreciate that. All right, agenda item 4 is a resolution authorizing acceptance of a grant from the National Environmental Health Association for the Forsyth County Department of Public Health to support the Environmental Health Division, Food and Lodging Division. Nicole Pretty is going to review this item. There's an associated budget ordinance amendment.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Our environmental health program is a busy program. We were here last week talking about our mosquito control. This week we are asking to appropriate $12,500 that the Food Lodging Institution program has received from the National Environmental Health Association and the FDA. They're in tandem to help our program achieve meeting some regulatory standards in retail food protection.
Any questions? Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. 2 more grant items. Agenda 5. Item 5 is an amendment to the FY24 budget ordinance. It appropriates $3,000 from the Appalachian Regional Commission. Michaela Westbrook with Budget Management will review. Hey, Michaela.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So this appropriation is part of a multi-year grant that was awarded to behavioral health. They were only expecting $40,000 for this year, but it's actually $43,000, so we need this to appropriate the additional $3,000.
Questions for Michaela?
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Michaela. Item 6 is a resolution authorizing acceptance of a grant from the Duke University Research Institute Development Team to Forsyth County Emergency Services. There's an associated amendment to the budget, and Chief Joey Hunley will review this.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is called a Race Cars Grant, which stands for Randomized Cluster Evaluation of Cardiac Arrest Systems, or Race Cars for short. Essentially what it is, it's a grant program. Duke is doing a study about intervention counties where they're giving us funding to do extra things like public education. We've done a lot of internal training to increase our cardiac arrest survival rate. We're 2% above the national average right now in the county with our cardiac arrest survival rate. And so ultimately what they're going to do is they're going to, at the conclusion of the study, they'll look at the counties that they have infused some money into to improve cardiac arrest survival rates and compare those to the counties that they didn't infuse money into and see if they can come up with some extra things that we should go after. This is actually some housekeeping for us. We've been doing this for about 2 years now, and so we've actually received some money already, and there's a budget ordinance to allocate that money. And so this is, again, to just catch up the paperwork.
When I read the description of where the money would go that was mentioned in the board materials.
Yes, sir.
It didn't say anything about educational outreach issues or advertising or something to prevent, heart attacks. It was all buying stuff is what was mentioned. It didn't itemize the items or the cost, but there was nothing that suggested that the dollars were going to be spent on on basically public awareness.
Right. We've actually engaged with the group, and what they said was, we're not going to control how you spend the money. We know that other things happen. But we are making a concerted effort. We've spent it on AEDs. We've spent it on some additional education for our own folks. We're working with the sheriff and his drone with a first responder program, which is a separate grant piece that we're working with Duke. But we're going to do a first in the nation AED delivery via drone. One of the things that I would like to use some of this funding for, that I'll come back at a later time, I think, is a program called Pulse Point, which is an app that you get on your phone. And so if you're within whatever radius it's set to, and a cardiac arrest gets dispatched through our 911 center, your phone will go off and let you know that there's a cardiac arrest victim within the vicinity. And will tell you where the nearest AED is. So if you are trained in cardiac arrest and you choose as a bystander or a layperson to go help that person, that's one of the things that we track through the American Heart Association's Mission Lifeline, is bystander CPR, and how many folks, how many cardiac arrests we run where the citizen, the Good Samaritan, actually engaged and did what we are training them to do. So this is just more things for us, to show that the county is a safe county.
It's really a connection with Duke University into our system, and then they want to see some data out of it. So it's almost a communication agreement to say, here's what we're doing. And of course, our medical director, they have been working in the cardiac scene, trying to do some really innovative kind of stuff around that. That was the presentation that Darrell Nelson had done, toward the end of his tenure as medical director. So,
yeah, we're doing a lot of different things between Duke and with Wake Forest with our medical director that are really leading edge stuff here, coupled with the biotech stuff and kidney regeneration and whatnot.
There were not a lot of strings on this money, and so I think the prior emergency services director signed it, and the money rolled in, so it's good.
Okay, any other questions for Joey? Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Chief. All right. We have several contractual matters. Item 7 is a resolution authorizing an amendment to the agreement with Masters Touch LLC to provide additional print processing and mailing services for Forsyth County Board of Elections. Tim Suji, our very busy elections director, is before you to discuss this.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I present to you an amendment for an agreement with the Masters Touch. It's a joint agreement with the Masters Touch between the Board of Elections and the Forsyth County Tax Department. This is to allow us to be able to mail out voter cards to inform the affected voters of the current redistricting that has taken place. There was a recent federal court ruling that has allowed us to proceed with the current redistricting plans. And this applies to the U.S. House of Representatives, NC State Senate, NC State House, and the City of Winston-Salem wards and districts changes that have been applied. This amendment will adjust the not-to-exceed amount to $408,000 for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024, which in the current agreement is at $280,000. I'll be glad to take any questions.
Well, I was just, when I read it, I was just a little curious on the amount. And I'm just trying to think, I was trying to think about the volume. I didn't have
Yes.
a good estimate on the number, but I mean, roughly the households of Forsyth. And I guess I was trying to wonder, are folks that are with the city elections, are they going to get a card and then they're going to get another card about state changes and another card that
So
says?
we
I'm
were
curious about
intentional,
that.
right? So we were intentional in holding off so that we could do the mail out all at one time, so that we weren't mailing out multiple cards and costing the taxpayer those dollars. And so by waiting and holding off and being able to do a single mail out, the Winston-Salem voters that may have gotten affected with the U.S. House changes or the NC State House or NC State Senate changes all got that change all on one card versus multiple.
That's
Multiple
great
cards.
news.
Yeah.
But then that gets back to my sort of thinking of 400 and whatever it is, thousand, what is a unit cost of handling those, sending those out? And I realize it doesn't just jump up on the table who gets which card. I mean, I realize obviously there's some important sorts that have to take place, which I would just speculate is a technology type sort. So I'm trying to get a handle, because if we're talking about registered voters, I mean, we better be talking about 200,000 people, and I can't imagine it takes $2 a person to send them a card.
It's the biggest cross driver is the postage. So that amount came out to about $91,000, and then the difference is the cost of the card and the printing and the processing. And this also
Just
affects
repeat that, it's
97% of
400 and
voters.
something thousand, right?
Right. So
Additional, this is additional.
no.
No.
So the current not to exceed amount is $280,000.
Okay,
And so if you tack on 128,000, that raises it up to
A
400.
little better now.
Right.
Got it. I did misread that, the way it sounded. It sounded like it was going to be the new additional. I got it. It's still a fair amount, but
It certainly is.
even with the 90,000 and going to 130, you're another looking at $40,000. There must be a fair amount of money going to them to handle that, their fee. It's got to be done. I'm with you. Question, yes, Dan?
My understanding is that the Board of Elections just made a change in an early voting site, moved
Yes.
an early voting site. Is that kind of information going to be included in any of these mailings?
Not in these mailings, but we do have advertising dollars, and we are working with the county communications department to address that and publicize that information. We're going to try to get the early voting information out to the public.
Let me invite you to use this publicity opportunity here.
Thank you very much.
To mention the change.
Yes. So, and early voting will begin next Thursday. The dates are February 15th through March 2nd. We have 12 early voting locations open throughout the county. The biggest change is the Forsyth County Government Center location will now be moved to Calvary Moravian Church, which is just several blocks down from here. It's actually got more than adequate parking. We are partnering with the Milton Rhodes Theater to have access to their parking space as well. The other locations include Brown and Douglas Recreation Center, Maisie Woodruff, Miller Park, Polo Park, which is another change. So we were previously at First Assembly Church right off the Wake Forest University campus and have moved back to Polo Park Recreation Center. We'll also be at Winston-Salem State Anderson Center, Southside Library, Clemens Library, Louisville Library, and Kernersville Library, the Pattison Memorial Library, and let me think, Rural Hall Library. So those are the 12 locations that we'll have open for this primary election.
All right, so the biggest changes are First Assembly is not going to be a location. Polo Park Recreation Center is a location.
Yes,
Forsyth Government Center is not a location.
that's correct.
Calvary Moravian at 600 Holly Street
That's correct.
is going to be a location that
In
will
lieu of
include-
the government center, right?
in lieu of the government center, and it will include parking now that's normally assigned to the Arts Center.
Yes. Free parking will be made available at that parking lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Tim?
Thank you.
Very good. Agenda item 8 is a resolution ratifying and authorizing execution of an interlocal agreement between Forsyth County and Wilkes County to provide A1C screening for the Minority Diabetes Prevention Program. Sharita Sutton will review. Good afternoon, Sharita.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We are requesting your approval of an interlocal agreement between Forsyth County and Wilkes County to provide A1C screenings for the Minorities Diabetes Prevention Program in the amount of $800. Any questions?
Any questions for Sharita?
Thank you.
All right, very good. Agenda item 9 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with Avcon Engineers and Planners Incorporated for landfill assessment. Our Smith Reynolds Airport Director, Mark Davidson, will review.
Good afternoon. Forsyth County owns a large parcel of land which measures approximately 64 acres adjacent to runway 1533 at Smith Reynolds Airport. In order to accommodate future growth that's compatible with the existing neighbors, the airport staff has started the planning process. Within that 64 acres, there's an old landfill which has been closed out by the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality Waste Management Division. And in 2016, the NCDEQ took soil, groundwater, surface water, and gas samples to find the limits of the old landfill. Shortly after, we, the county, executed a declaration of perpetual land use restriction with the state, and a fence was put around the 18-acre site. In order to determine how to develop the site safely, it is necessary to perform a landfill assessment utilizing existing money distributed from the State Capital Infrastructure Fund, 100%. The Airport Department recommends the execution of agreement with Avcon Engineers and Planners, which includes in Task Order 24-1. To assist with the specialized work, Avcon will be using Terracon as a subcontractor, and the total fee would be $87,708. Avcon solicited bids from other subcontractors such as S&ME and Garrett and Moore. Terracon was found to be the most cost-effective for the county. The task order is broken down into 3 phases, and we, the county, can stop the work at any point if we don't want to proceed to the next phase. Any questions?
Any questions? I got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Agenda item, we have a couple of property matters, so Kirby's going to come up and dive into these. He'll handle both of them. Item 10 is a resolution authorizing a donation of county-owned real property located at Oak Grove Road to the Board of Trustees for Forsyth Tech Community College. And then the other one he's going to talk about is a strategy around getting some personal property disposed of in the old Hall of Justice. So, Kirby, it's all yours.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Board. Appreciate the opportunity to bring these items before you today. As background on the first item, Green Hall, which is located at 990 Oak Grove Road, was constructed. Did I not do it correctly?
Well, you did do it correctly, but before having, you're just
I
going to
apologize.
have, no, you're going to have to just do.
Oh, I got it. Click on the
It's
side.
not-
Got it. Thank you. All right, so Green Hall was constructed in 1990 by Forsyth Memorial Hospital and North Carolina Baptist Hospital, I guess what at the time was Forsyth Memorial Hospital, with the intent that it be used for the training of healthcare professionals. The county acquired the property at the end of construction, and Forsyth Tech has used it since that time. And I'll quickly give a compliment to our clerk's office. They dug up the board minutes from the 1990 meeting that really filled me in on the background of that. I had absolutely no idea. The property is valued at $4.6 million on the tax rolls. It's 2.9 acres in size. It is part of Forsyth Tech's Silas Creek campus. So to orient you, there's an aerial image on the right side of the screen. The property is highlighted in orange. The majority of the campus is located to the east and to the northeast. Silas Creek is directly to the north of the image. Ebert is to the west. So as I understand it, Forsyth Tech was going through a process where they were looking at each of their 28 different deeds and working to combine them into one. And they stumbled across this property, which we sort of did too, and realized they did not own it, that the county did. And we dug up the history on it. And they are, of course, requesting donation of that property for a couple of different reasons. According to the college, owning the property would streamline their routine and capital maintenance processes. It would allow them to use state and other non-county funds to maintain and improve the property. And especially should larger needs arise in the future, they can fall back on SCIF's funding and all that type of stuff. So if approved by the board, the deed that's attached to the item includes 2 proposed restrictions, and these were drafted by our attorney's office. The first is that the property it would be required to be used as part of the Forsyth Tech campus for on-site educational instruction. The second is that the property cannot be conveyed except to another member of the community college system in connection with continued operation as an on-site community college. So that's a mouthful there at the end. So I've been working with some great folks at Forsyth Tech. I've got Kizzy Lee, the CFO from Forsyth Tech here, and Scott Booth, the Executive Director of Facilities, that are here to answer any questions the board has kind of regarding their project, their approach, and their desire for the donation. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and obviously can defer to them as well.
Questions for Kirby? Pretty straightforward. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, click. So, as background on this item, as the board knows, the county closed the Hall of Justice facility in October of 2023. So everything that's in the facility right now is presumed to be owned by the county. That sounds like a sort of a simple point, but it has not been. You know, what is owned by the state, what has been owned by the stakeholders in the building. And we sort of set a deadline. We said, you know, on some level, we can't tell if some of this stuff was bought by the county or by you or by the state. So let's all look at it. That deadline has passed. Whatever was going to be removed by those folks has been removed. So everything that remains in the facility is presumed to be owned by the county. We have worked very hard in general services since that time to remove personal property from the facility. We focused on moving items of higher value that, based on our experience, have higher or high reusability within the larger organization. Those items will eventually be placed in our Fred's List system, which is sort of our online surplus management program. On the right side of the screen, I always like to find sort of fun images for these things. That is one section of chairs that we've removed from the Hall of Justice. So we estimate that we've removed several hundred individual items from the hall. Our last count placed that between 500 and 600 different items that we've pulled out of the facility. And those, of course, will be used elsewhere within the county. We're going to make an effort to do that because we want to focus on reusability. So while lots of items have been removed from the hall, a lot of items still remain in the hall. Most of the items in the hall right now we consider to have a low reusability throughout the organization. A couple examples include courtroom benches. Those have value, especially to churches. Online we've seen, but they're not reusable typically within the county. Audio equipment in the courtroom, it's older stuff. It's not things that we use here. Older cubicle setups and what I'm calling vintage furniture. In terms of timeline, General Services is working to list the property for sale. This is really sort of a step in that process. It's actually, we feel like one of the last steps that we need to do to really get that property on the market. And we feel like it will present better if it's clean and not cluttered, essentially. So our proposal, in consideration of just really the large number of items that remain in the building, and in an effort to limit our holding costs associated with continuing to own the building, is to engage in auction service to sell essentially what remains. We solicited proposals from 5 local auction companies and additionally hosted walkthroughs for interested bidders. We asked them essentially to tell us their commission rate. Rogers Realty and Auction Company, they're located in Mount Airy, was our only firm to respond. You might recognize their name. They are the ones that have handled our on-site auto auction over the past couple of years. You know, some folks just flat out declined when we told them what we were trying to do. We were really trying to generate some interest from auctioneers in this case, because it's a little different what we were asking them to do. Some folks came on site and really once they saw the amount of administrative work that was going to go into a sale, they said no thanks. So we did end up with one proposal. Again, it's from Rogers. They were proposing a fee of 45% of gross proceeds. They will, in return for that, provide the online auction service to include advertising the auction, cataloging and listing the items for sale, and managing the related pickups and inquiries that come as part of the auction. They will also charge a 15% buyer's premium that they collect directly from the buyer.
We will be billed for our direct costs associated with advertisements, but we expect that to not exceed $1,500. That's in addition to that 45% commission rate. The auction, similar to GovDeals, would run for 10 days and have a preview period. So that model is still sort of the same. You know, the commission rate we paid on the on-site auto auction was 5%. This is, of course, a lot more than 5%. It reflects just the administrative work it's going to take on the part of the auction company to put this thing together. I mean, it's a 160,000 square foot facility, hundreds of rooms, all of which have a little treasure in them still. In the past, the board has approved a different model, which is to use GovDeals to dispose of surplus personal property. If you can compare this to that, you know, GovDeals does not charge the county a fee. But really the only service they provide is allowing us to use their online auction platform. We go through all of the legwork to get that on that site. You know, we go through, we inventory the items, we physically group them together, then we take pictures of them, then we describe them, we handle all the questions that come from that. We're on site for previews. Once the sale closes, then we have to oversee each pickup. We're actually a little concerned about overseeing pickups in a 7-story building, especially if you had multiple ones happening at one time. So, you know, we really saw that as just a very difficult endeavor to manage with our existing staff and current workload. So in the case of the hall, we really think it would take us a couple of months to put that sale together. And that's just because, again, the administrative work and then the sort of the existing workload that's out there right now. So without really sort of discontinuing some services, it would certainly take us a couple of months to do that. So from a staff perspective, the auction service appears to be the most efficient and cost-effective way to dispose of the remaining Hall of Justice surplus items. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the board has.
Do they promise that they'll get rid of the stuff?
Well, they certainly benefit if they do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're partners in that. Yeah. I mean, that's part of the advertisement thing that we worked with them on, is they're going to be a social media campaign. They're going to help us publicize this thing. It's to their benefit.
Yeah.
What if they don't sell them? I think that's what.
Well, we don't pay them if they don't sell, because we pay 45% of.
We're going to have to clean it out. Is that the deal?
So then,
Might
then
still have to do
then
that.
we have a decision to make. So at that time, we've demonstrated that the item has no value. So the statute lets us dispose of it. Or, you know, we can try and clean it up the best we can and roll on with a sale of the facility.
Yeah, if you buy one share, you have to take 200. That'll be that's right.
There's a strategy in grouping lots. We've done this for gosh, I don't know, I've done this for 6 or 8 years, and if you can go too many and it scares people away, you can go too few and you end up with 400 pickups. Yeah. So, I mean, these folks, I did look at their website, you know, when we were going through this to see, are they doing similar things now? Yes and no. I mean, they're involved a lot in real estate. They do a lot of rolling stock auctions, especially for other counties. But they do sort of large estate sales as well, which is sort of the model for this.
It's kind of we'll try it and hopefully it works. Great, right?
Well, well, I mean, I certainly do hope it works. I just don't, we can do this internally. It's going to take us a long time. And I'm not sure that we, in terms of total cost, there's going to be a lot of money that's directed into salaries in terms of doing this.
Yeah, the cost avoidance here really is what we're working towards. So, yeah.
If most of it sells.
Well, if it doesn't sell, we don't pay.
Well, if it doesn't sell, there's no work involved, it's just cleaning it out.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Which is less work.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, presumably.
A lot less work. Any other questions for Kirby about this?
Kirby, when do you anticipate putting this on the market?
Great question. I should have said that. So their busy season is spring and summer. So we're targeting late February, early March. Our goal here is to push this property towards the market, and we can do that by doing this, hopefully successfully, very quickly. And we want to make sure we take adequate time to advertise it. We want folks to know about it. It's very similar to what we did with the Central Library. So the board essentially did a blanket surplus declaration there, and we had a yard sale. It snowed, I remember. And it was very successful. And honestly, I would love to do that here. It's just, you know, in the Central Library, we actually physically brought all the items down into the parking garage. And it's just, I mean, even from a space perspective, very difficult to do in this building.
Yeah. I think Commissioner Wisenhunt was asking when you're going to sell the
Oh,
courthouse.
I apologize.
I'm
I was
not
focused
worried
on
about
desks and chairs. So we're going to I'm starting that process now. And so what we can do, I think we sort of talked with the manager's office about a strategy around the disposition there. Right now, I think my direction is to get this out onto the commercial realty sites as a listing, saying this is for sale. We'll go through our normal process of advertising, make us an offer. We'll certainly look at that. As a broker, my job is to share all those offers with you. We'll work with the local commercial real estate community and say there's a great opportunity here. I've shown the building 3 times, most of which when it was still operational. So there is interest out there, and so we want to make sure we're capitalizing on that now.
An auction date.
I'm sorry?
Do you have an auction date?
Late February, early March. We're not sure. We got to get them in there and start working. I'll be happy to come back to you with that. So auction, and then while that's happening, we're going to be prepping the listing.
Other questions for Kirby? Yes.
Small question. You mentioned that $1,500 in advertising were out of our pocket. Realistically, what are the chances that that's going to eat most of the sales, the net sales after the 45%?
I walked through there today, so I'd be prepared to answer this sort of question. And I thought as I walked through, what's this worth? And honestly, about the 3rd floor, I lost count. There's still a fair amount of stuff in there. I mean, really, if you think about, just the courtrooms, the benches in the courtrooms, we've sold before when we did a remodel, and they were snapped up by a church. There's value in that building. And so if we can work with these folks to do a good job, I hope that we can bring you a much larger number than that.
I'm always surprised a little bit by what the personal property sells for when we do the gov deals.
Our typical gov deal sale will generate several thousand.
Yeah. He had a stack of books that we didn't know what to do with, and there's been some real surprises there.
Yeah. The only thing we can't sell in gov deals, and we sure have tried, is tires.
Any other questions for Kirby? All right.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kirby. All right. We have a couple of tax administration matters, and Michael Pollock's here in John Burgess's stead today. The first one's a resolution approving refunds by the assessor collective amount of $13,170.93. That's pretty straightforward. It's out of the North Carolina vehicle tax system. The second item Michael will review. It's a resolution acknowledging receipt of the tax collector's report of the total amount of unpaid 2023 taxes that are liens on real property in order for the tax collector to advertise such liens. So, Michael.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This resolution orders a tax collector to advertise the 2023 taxes that are liens on real property and acknowledges the report of unpaid taxes that we provided to you on the 1st of February. We had about 15,000 accounts that were unpaid for 2023 taxes at that time. Today, we have about 12,500 accounts that are unpaid. Upon your approval at your next meeting, we will mail notices that should arrive to taxpayers around March 1st that alerts the taxpayers if they don't pay by a certain date, then they will be advertised in the newspapers. The last day to pay without being advertised is anticipated to be April 5th. We'll have the last date to pay on the notices. Then we will plan to advertise in 4 newspapers during the week of April 15th. We advertise in the Winston-Salem Journal, the Winston-Salem Chronicle, the Clemens Courier, the Kernersville News. Each account that ends up being advertised is assessed a fee. Last year, the fee was $7.50. And that goes on their tax bill. Essentially, once the fees are paid, the delinquent taxpayers are paying to have their own name in the newspaper. This advertisement is mandated by North Carolina Statute 105-369 and constitutes the first step in the foreclosure process. Also, on the 1st of February, we provided to you a list of unpaid sanitation and demolition liens that are in Forsyth County's charge for the municipalities of Winston-Salem, Kernersville, Rural Hall, Tobaccoville, and Walkertown. The Tax Administration Department plans to advertise the 2023 unpaid sanitation and demolition liens with a regular advertisement, which would represent about 700 unpaid bills. Though this additional advertising is not mandated by statute, these liens can also result in property foreclosure. In November of 2023, Forsyth County received and billed Winston-Salem's unpaid demolition liens for the first time. There were about 240 of these bills. Any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That's it.
Before we adjourn, I have sort of just said three things I want to say. One, Commissioner McDaniel actually is at a North Carolina Association of County Commissioners training today. This also happens to be the birthday of our county manager, Dudley Watts, and it's one of those that ends in a decade, so I won't say anything more. It's one of those kind of decade events. And I don't know that our singing happy birthday would be particularly helpful for our recording here, but I think all of us would join me in wishing you a good celebration. I did ask him what he was doing today. He said, "Oh, nothing." I said, might be surprised when you get home on it.
I think we should sing anyway.
Even if it sounds poorly. Okay, you can lead us, start us.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dudley.
Happy birthday to you. How old are you?
Thank you very much. It's been a great day so far.
And the third thing I wanted to mention today is one that's bittersweet, and it actually is something that arrived today. And I actually spoke with Mr. Plyler actually during lunch today and asked if I have his permission to read a letter that he submitted actually to me yesterday. And he said, please do, that'd be great. And this letter says, I began my career in broadcasting on WCOG at the tender age of 15. From 1960 to 1964, I served in the Air Force, working in Air Command and Armed Forces radio and television. Upon my discharge, I came home to Winston-Salem to be a broadcaster on radio and later television on WSGS and WXII. It's been my life's work to serve and inform the citizens of Forsyth County. Since 1994, it has been my honor to serve as Forsyth County Commissioner. For 10 of those years, I served as chairman of the board. I'm proud of everything we've been able to accomplish together, building parks, a government center, a new courthouse, human services campus, schools, and even pickleball courts. But as every broadcaster knows, you reach a point when it's time to sign off. After prayerful consideration and discussion with my family, I've decided it's now my time to sign off. Effective June 30th, 2024, I'm resigning as Forsyth County Commissioner, and I will not seek re-election. I sincerely thank and appreciate all the commissioners, staff, and citizens I have worked with over the years. So, Dave, thank you.
Thank you very much, Don, and I appreciate you doing that.
It's my pleasure. And we will have between now and June 30th another time or two to commend your great works over the years, and certainly try to do that appropriately. Just as our county managers plan to leave, the two together, we might have to have some joint events on some things to do that. So we look forward to doing those, and certainly have an opportunity for all of us to say something at a later time.
Thank you.
But thank you for your service and for your friendship, by the way, over many years. So thank you. We stand adjourned.